I think fans get into that trap too. It's, oh, Jalen Hurts has 4 passing touchdowns. Yeah, what's your point? He has 6 rushing touchdowns. I don't. Who? I think this is more of the Facebook crowd. Who doesn't like scoring? I don't understand that logic. He looks like he just got back from London. Not sure if he made the trek or not, but Kevin Boilard, man, the New York Giants, their punter may be stuck in London, but you certainly are not, my friend.
No, Jeff, you think they would let me in that country with the energy I bring? Way too much. Jeff, by the way, I see you got the Phillies shirt on. Like, should I just get in my bunker now? Like, are we going to make it through the weekend? Is it too much Philly sports going on? I feel like the area is just going to explode.
I actually joked with a couple of my superiors at CBS that Citizens Bank Park may be burnt to the ground by the time I walk into the link for Eagles Cowboys Sunday, and I might not get out of the link because they'll already have the torches ready in case the Eagles beat the Cowboys.
I just assumed you were going to post up there Friday and just not come home. Just kind of go to the Phillies games Saturday if needed, and then on Sunday. I also thought it was funny. You sent that whole tweet, didn't even mention the Flyers who are opening this weekend. Jeez, just complete blatant disrespect for one of the major 4 sports teams.
Yeah, did you see my savage response to the one guy who mentioned the Union? My brother-in-law is a big Union fan, by the way. I said, well, if you knew anything about the Union, they clinched first in the Eastern Conference, so they're not playing this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And man, hey, I know it wasn't an omission. Jeff Kerr does not miss a Philly sport. He just says maybe not worth this tweet.
Yeah, they're not even worth being on ESPN Plus. The Flyers. I think you have to watch them on ESPN Plus this weekend. Like, I can't even get Jim Jackson on the first game of the year. Why should I get excited for this?
Yeah, well, I'll be watching all of it, so watching to make sure that I can travel.
Yeah, our buddy Mike DeCipia. That's the only reason I support the Flyers. Mike DeCipia.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Me too. Same here.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I mean, you're still on cloud 9, right? The Giants are 4-1. Who would have thought that?
I mean, not me. Not me. I will say, I said heading into this week, like, it's London. Anything can happen in London. It's obviously a massive road trip. There's a bunch that goes into it, but it's also a whole circus. It's like a mini European Super Bowl with all the media attention and fan stuff that you have to do. And players obviously want to see the area they're arriving a few days ahead of time. It's just not your usual schedule. And then I think what was kind of interesting is the Giants didn't even put a bye week after London. And I remember when that came out, like back in the spring or the summer, whenever they announced the schedules, it was like, yeah, the Giants probably aren't gonna, like, they didn't request their bye week after London. In fact, they said they don't want it then, which I thought was really weird, but also kind of shows that I think that this coaching staff probably had the idea that, hey, this is just another business trip. Whereas, the Packers, it was their first time ever going to London and playing there. They were the last of the 32 franchises to make the trip, and the Giants are undefeated in London. So I guess it just is par for the course.
I started getting the feeling more and more by the week that the Giants had a really good chance to beat Green Bay. Just from the pre-week vibes, I guess, all the stories that come out before the game, like Rasul Douglas saying how much he hated playing there, and Aaron Rodgers said he wished he got to spend more time there. And you're hearing all these stories about Packers hating London. Why are we in London? And you got the Giants, that you see on their social media account, they're visiting stuff. They're kind of enjoying their trip, but they also know, like you said, it's a business trip. They're here to win a football game. But it felt like it was a healthy balance. Whereas on the other end, you got Green Bay complaining, trying to find 32 reasons why they shouldn't be in London, even though they were the last team to go. And now all of a sudden the Giants they go down early, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if Green Bay gets one more score, I think that'll be enough. Well, they let the Giants hang around in there, and I got to give Daniel Jones all the credit in the world. I thought that was his best game as a professional quarterback.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's had a couple shining performances, but that one, I think with Saquon going down in the second half, he ended up coming back and scoring a touchdown late in the game, but he was not on the field for that 15 play, 8-minute, 91-yard drive to, tie the game. And I thought that was, such a gutsy drive. He was scrambling on that drive, had a bloody hand, completing passes to, practice squad dudes. It really was a gutsy performance by Daniel Jones. And, you wouldn't know just by watching that this dude was limping on the field, pulled out of the game a week ago against the Bears with an ankle injury, and they had to go Wildcat quarterback the rest of the way. There was no signs that he had a lingering ankle injury. Compare that to a guy like Kadarius Toney, who gets more and more hurt the less he plays somehow. Daniel Jones is the type of dude, I think, at least mentality wise, and the way he gives up his body for the team, that's the guy you want to build around, not a Kadarius Toney.
I have to bring this up with Daniel Jones. I still don't think he's ultimately their guy. But say this keeps up and they keep playing this well. And I'm not saying they're going to win 11, 12 games here, but say they win 8 or 9 and they're in the playoff mix. And Jones keeps playing like he's doing, not turning the football over, not fumbling the ball, kind of running the offense. Do you stick with him?
I would stick with him only because who in college this year is that guy, that dude? And also look at the trajectory of the season. Does it look like you're going to have a top 5, top 10 pick? Who are you going to get in maybe the middle or the second half of the first round that's going to run the offense better than Daniel Jones? Probably no one. There's a good chance that maybe he's on the franchise tag next year. It might be another prove it year for Daniel Jones next year. We'll see, though. I think that the tide is changing. I think that Brian Daboll, his comments after the game were these were his most resounding comments in terms of saying, I'm glad that Daniel Jones is our quarterback. He's had some excellent games this year. He's led 3 second half comebacks this year. And I think that the game script against the Packers followed very similarly the one against the Titans in week 1. They just wore them down in the second half, and Daniel Jones made the plays that he needed to make. I think if you watch his highlights, you're not turning on Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. Everyone knows that at this point. But, dude, as far as a gutsy guy who can run an offense, and he doesn't do too much. Even though his supporting cast is weak, he's made a lot out of a little. And I think that if they make it to the trade deadline and they're still 1 or 2 losses at that point, I think Brian Daboll owes it to Daniel Jones and Giants fans to go out there and make a move to go get a receiver. I know that they really don't want to dip into that cash for next year, but if you're in the hunt, you got to see what you got in Daniel Jones. I feel like they were kind of sitting on this season thinking, we won't play Darius Slayton. We're going to put Saquon Barkley on display. And then if we're, if the walls fall in by the trade deadline, we're just going to, fire sale who you want, anyone, kind of like what's going on with the Panthers right now. So that's the way I think that the script is flipped even on the coaching staff and the front office with how good they played and overperformed so far.
Yeah, they win Sunday against the Ravens. If you look at their schedule, and you know the schedule a lot better than I do, I don't see them kind of falling if they do beat the Ravens. And I think they're capable of doing it. But
yeah, I actually think that there's who is better equipped to know Lamar Jackson's weaknesses than Wink Martindale, who was the defensive coordinator in Baltimore. And he's doing an incredible job with what the Giants have done this year with their blitz packages. If you listen to Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, he was just hyping up the Giants defense and saying Wink Martindale is one of the most creative coordinators out there with his blitz packages. If he's befuddling Aaron Rodgers with the pressure he's sending, what's he going to do to Lamar Jackson, who he's watched probably closer than any player, who his defenses have gone up against in practice more than any quarterback over the past 4 years. So I can't think of a guy who's better equipped to stop Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense than Wink Martindale. And then you're right. After that, they go to Jacksonville. They should win that. And then they go all the way out to Seattle to play the Seahawks. I could see that as kind of looking way ahead. The Ravens and Jaguars aren't, the Giants aren't like a juggernaut here. So, but I see that trip to Seattle as that's probably not going to go well for them.
But you have to look at this too. If you're say you beat the Ravens, you're 5-1. All of a sudden you think, hey, we can beat that team. We can beat that team.
For sure. And I think that this team, the Giants, are definitely feeling that way. Like, I don't know if you go into, I remember where it felt like after the Cowboys game, after, all right, okay, cool. You broke out the all whites. You played on Monday night. You got, the score was kind of close, but let's be honest, the Cowboys were the stronger, more dominant team. They looked like the better team throughout that game. And then you build your confidence back up with the win over the Bears. And then like it's completely different week to week. Going into the Packers game, if you're going in off 2 straight losses, you're like, oh, there's no way they beat the Packers. But, 1 win or 2 wins, stringing them together and you get a little winning streak going, all of a sudden you start to feel like world beaters. And yeah, that's why I feel like going into the Ravens game, it's like, yeah, why couldn't the Giants beat them? Especially when you see like the Ravens are not that far from being 5-0 and they kind of have beat themselves, I guess you could say, in a couple of games. So why wouldn't that happen against the Giants? Or why couldn't it?
And, we kind of mocked it a couple of weeks ago, them beating the Titans, even though it was a big win. Well, how good are the Titans? Well, the Titans are 3-2 now. Well, how good are the Packers? Well, a week ago, we were saying the Packers are Super Bowl contenders. Now what are we saying about them? So you beat those 2 teams. Why not?
I know. I was actually speaking to your colleague, Jordan Dejani. He had to rank all the teams with at least 3 wins for an article I think he's putting out today. And he just could not put the Giants anywhere other than 14th, last out of the 14. And I was like, dude, why? They've beaten 2 of the teams that you have ranked ahead of them. And, you really think they're better than you think the Jets are better than them? Like, come on. Don't give me that. And then, there's all this stuff about like, he's like, well, what about the Dolphins? Like Tua didn't play. It's like, okay, well, what about the Giants? Like Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay didn't play. Like, are we just working in an imaginary fantasy world where like, I don't understand why everyone makes excuses why the Giants are good. It's like, oh no, that's not real. This or that. But like, oh, the Dolphins, their 40-17 loss or whatever it was to the Jets doesn't count because Tua didn't play. Why does no one say, hey, the Giants would have destroyed the Packers if they had anyone at wide receiver other than practice squad guys? No one says that. So I think they like to have it both ways. And I saw a tweet from Talking Giants. If you look at the 4 or 5 teams with 4 wins or 5 wins, including the Eagles, the Giants are tied with the Vikings for the best record among their opponents, 13-12, whereas the Eagles have the worst of those teams at 10-15.
Yeah, I think where the Eagles are getting the legitimacy is not just beating teams, how they're beating them, and the Vikings are 4-1. You can't say, well, the Eagles didn't play anybody. Well, yeah, they did. The Vikings had 1 loss. That's to the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles blew them out. And the Cowboys are the team to me. I think they're a really good team. I do. But are the Rams as good as they were? Are the Bengals as good as they were? I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, they're impressive wins, no doubt. The Giants' wins impressive now, but if you look at the numbers here, they're not scoring a lot of points. They're just getting by because of they're playing bad offensive lines, and they play them consecutively.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Cooper Rush has played really well. Like, he's a smart quarterback who's not making a lot of mistakes, and dude doesn't lose. So it's kind of hard to come down on their offense because they're doing enough to win the game. I think that I go back and forth on those 3 defenses: Giants, Eagles, Cowboys. Like, who's the best defense? I'm leaning Cowboys just because I think that their pass rush with Micah Parsons and with DeMarcus Lawrence, like, that's a really good duo. And they worked the Giants when they played them. But then you look at the Eagles secondary and you're like, oh my gosh, that's got to be the best secondary in the league. And then you look at the Giants with Wink Martindale and they're like, they got the most creative defensive coordinator. So I don't know. I go back and forth on those 3 teams. And I saw your little, tease in the tweet where, like, how did the NFC East get so good so fast? Like, from 2020 to 2020, 2022. And I think one of the biggest reasons is Ron Rivera will tell you quarterback. And two, the second biggest reason is defense. They look like the old school NFC East where all three of these teams, four of these teams, maybe with Washington, we can kind of lump them in, but like hard, tough-nosed defense, and I think that's the NFC East and the brand of football that I'm used to watching from growing up, from watching the old school highlights, from the 80s and stuff. So I love it, and I think that it's high time for the Giants and the rest of the NFC East to kind of get their turn to beat up on the rest of the league, because 2020 was uncalled for with the amount of hate the NFC East got from the rest of the league.
As you remember correctly, I wrote a bunch of articles about it's not the worst division in NFL history. There actually have been worse, but because you got the big markets like New York, Philadelphia, Dallas, Washington, they're all prestigious franchises. Remember, we're still the division that boasts, hey, every team in our division has a championship, has a Super Bowl championship. What does your division have? And I think people get tired of hearing that. But I secretly think the NFL and NBC really want the Giants to win Sunday, because everybody in New York's going to be glued to Philadelphia, Dallas, because if Philadelphia loses, we got a three-way tie for first place at 5-1.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't the NFL love that? I honestly can't think of anything that would be more. I can't think of a race, an NFC East race, or a time where this race would have been more exciting than if that happens on Sunday. Like three teams at 5-1, and you look at the rest of the league, like how many teams across the league, there's historic parity. It feels like where, every team is 3-2 or 2-3. And then all of a sudden you look at the NFC East and there's 3 5-1 teams potentially after this week. We'll see. I mean, it could also be, the Eagles take care of business and they start to separate themselves from the pack. I mean, I feel like the Eagles, you mentioned earlier how the nature of the games that they've won. Well, that Arizona Cardinals game was the first game where they really had to play a full 60 minutes, and they pulled it out and they did it, and they proved that they could do it. But okay, I feel like a lot of people are a little reluctant to jump on the bandwagon, even though people love Jalen Hurts. Like I feel like people's head and hearts aren't in the same place on Jalen Hurts. Like a lot of people love him as a player, but I also feel like when you spend a whole offseason saying, wow, the Eagles have a great roster, the only question mark is quarterback. It's a big question mark. Do they have the quarterback? Is Jalen Hurts the guy? It takes some momentum, and you need to string a lot of wins together to kind of get everyone to believe that that's the guy. He can be the guy. Like, look at the way Geno Smith is playing in Seattle, and people are still like, well, no, I believe what I saw the last, 6 years as opposed to what I've seen, in these last 6 weeks.
Before I lead into this question, since you mentioned Geno Smith, he played well last year in place of Russell Wilson. He did not lose games for that team. So I'm kind of not surprised he's doing what he's doing. But I want to bring into this. So Jalen Hurts, if he wins Sunday night, and I'm not saying he has to play well, but if he leads the Eagles to victory, do you dub him, say, this is the guy, this is the franchise quarterback?
Dude, I don't know how you couldn't. I'll be honest. I think that there are some physical limitations in his skill set. I don't think that, same with Daniel Jones. I don't think that you're going to turn on the Jalen Hurts highlights and ever see Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. But you might see a prime Russell Wilson. He is making better throws than he's had ever before in his career this year. I don't think he's been in a situation where he's been down a touchdown or two, and it's like, all right, Jalen, put the team on your back. Let's see you dig this team out of a hole with your arm. Then we'll see what that looks like. But there's also maybe the Eagles don't get there. You've seen their schedule. I also think that there's a value. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There is value in a running quarterback who, keeps the defense honest with his legs. I think that's what Daniel Jones does. I think it's what Lamar Jackson does. I think it's what Jalen Hurts does. And I think there's teams like Chicago who go out and draft a Justin Fields, get this idea that, we have a Patrick Mahomes caliber talent or a Justin Herbert caliber talent, and they don't play to his strengths. The Giants aren't embarrassed to run a bootleg with Daniel Jones and get an ugly first down. Same with the Eagles. They're not embarrassed to, okay, we're on the goal line. We're just going to QB sneak it with Jalen Hurts because it works. Like, do what works. I think some coaches and some NFL teams get this idea of the glitz and the glamour of the position at quarterback because the way the league is. But there's more than one way to win at the quarterback position. And I think that the Eagles and the Giants and even the Cowboys with Cooper Rush in a different degree are like accepting that. And that's why they're winning.
I think fans get into that trap too. It's, Jalen Hurts has 4 passing touchdowns. Yeah, what's your point? He has 6 rushing touchdowns. I think this is more of the Facebook crowd. Who doesn't like scoring? I don't understand that logic.
Yeah. Hey, heads up. A 6 touchdown, rushing touchdown, and a passing touchdown. They're both worth 6 points. It's the same. So, I think it's a good thing. Like, especially if I think there's questions when it comes to like when you're looking at Giants versus Eagles, like, okay, can Daniel Jones's body handle? We've already seen him get an ankle injury this year. He's been injured a million other ways in his career. Like, so can his body handle the rushing workload? That's a legitimate question. Jalen Hurts, he's built different, like he can handle it. And not only is he going to handle it, he's probably going to deliver more blows than he's going to eat, So I think that he's uniquely built for that type of role. And yeah, fans should get over it and, embrace it. To be honest, like the team is 5-0 and he's a big reason why. So again, there might be another game where the game script goes, haywire and he's got to win a game with his arm and he looks completely different, but I haven't cross that bridge when you get to it.
My favorite thing about Jalen Hurts this year is he's defeating all the narratives. He can't throw, or he can't throw to his left. Well, he's throwing to his left more than ever. Can't throw across the middle of the field. He's doing that more than ever. Can't play against zone coverage. He's leading the league in completion percentage against zone coverage, and he's second in passer rating. What do you think, Kevin? Do you think Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the league through 5 weeks?
It would be really tough to make an argument against him or for anyone else. I mean, I think that Saquon Barkley is up there, but Jalen Hurts would get my vote. And we talked about that last week where I said, it's probably Jalen Hurts. But just piggybacking on your point with him looking better throwing the ball, you know what else helps? Having great receivers. You go out and get a quarterback, AJ Brown. Look, I don't care if your quarterback is Cooper Rush or Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones or whoever. If you didn't have AJ Brown before and now you do, you're going to be a better quarterback than you were the year before. And then you got Devonta Smith on the other side. Like, come on, man. Like, that's a great wide receiver duo. Like, you would have to, maybe you can hide some of those shortcomings with a wide receiver duo like that. The Giants, like, you can't, with their wide receiver core, there's no hiding Daniel Jones' ability. Like, what you're seeing is what you're getting. He's got to make every throw because the wide receivers, aren't going to be making any exceptional plays. So I think that it goes into roster building. And, if you have a quarterback who you can win with, yeah, you go out and you get him weapons. And, I think that's what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts. And it's part of the reason why he's made such a big leap is AJ Brown.
I gave 46 minutes into this show, and you mentioned it a little bit here. How about the whole Ron Rivera, Carson Wentz saga going on this week?
All right. Yeah. So hold on. I want to ask you, do you think did Carson Wentz deserve an apology? I don't think so.
No, I wouldn't have apologized to him. I would have said, dude, be better.
Yeah, me too. I'd be like, yo, man, hey, season's like almost over and it's 5 weeks in, like what does he owe Carson Wentz? I get it. Like for like locker room, like, oh, you don't want to throw the quarterback. Like Carson Wentz has such a history of being a great locker room guy. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that I get what he meant. What he probably meant was more like stability year over year at the quarterback position. And Washington's had a rotating door while Giants have had time to develop Daniel Jones. Eagles have had time to develop Jalen Hurts. Cowboys have had time to find out that Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott. But I think that, they're now jumping in with Carson Wentz and they're hitting the ground, trying to hit the ground running. They fall flat on their face through 5 weeks. And, I just don't know what they owe Carson Wentz. It's just, to me, it's another failed experiment. And honestly, one they should have known better. Like, they had an up-close look at Carson Wentz. They've seen him bounce around the league. Honestly, I don't know what they were thinking when they made that trade for him. Yeah, man. I think that that's a bad situation that's probably only going to get worse. And we've seen countless quarterbacks cost their coach jobs. And I think Ron Rivera is a really good coach. And it would be really unfortunate if the ongoing quarterback drama in Washington costs him his job because, again, I think he's a good coach.
Yeah, Washington, Carolina, I think are the two teams that have the most starting quarterbacks since 2019. And you're seeing the results. They just don't win games. And I just thought it was funny. He says quarterback literally a day after the whole Carson Wentz throws an interception at the goal line to cost his team a victory. And I mean, I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care what profession you are. If your boss just publicly shamed you like that, I don't think there's a way you recover.
Right. And again, like I think that Ron Rivera was talking more about like stability at the quarterback position year over year, but how could you not perceive it the way you just described it? You know, especially when he just comes out like, okay, he just said quarterback. Like that's all he said, one word answer, you know, like there's a way to describe what I'm trying to convey on behalf of Ron Rivera that, you know, gets the point across without people thinking you just threw your quarterback under the bus. But the way he phrased that, and he came out the next day and said, you know, like that wasn't the best way. I had a bad day and stuff. So, but I don't know how you can't, like, especially in the world of Twitter where you're not listening to the full quote. You see just like the tweet quote, you know, there's not even a video accompanied with it or anything. And people just say, whoa, he just said quarterback, blaming the whole thing on the quarterback. And I don't think it's all Carson Wentz's fault. I think that, you know, if you look at the way Washington was playing a couple of years ago, they were running the ball well. You know, they had a great defense. Like, why has their defense fallen off? You know, like look at the other three defenses in the division. So they're keeping those teams afloat or above afloat in all three cases. So where did their defense go? That's not Carson Wentz.
Yeah, if I was Rivera, I would have started with quarterback, realized what I said, and be like, well, I have linebackers that can't tackle. I have a secondary that can't cover. I have an offensive line that can't block. Like, I would just completely just go balls to the wall and slam everybody on the football team and just say, hey, look, if we can't beat the Chicago Bears Thursday night, forget it. But by the way, that is our primetime game. Our primetime games this weekend outside of Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Cowboys are absolutely horrendous to the game of football.
You know, it's funny because the Thursday night matchups have long been like kind of made fun of and stuff. And this year with it moving to Amazon Prime and a lot of people having to sign up for it that didn't previously have it, but they're like, I can't go a day without football. So I got to get it. And that's me too. But, you know, they started off like, oh, okay, Patrick Mahomes versus Justin Herbert, Thursday night football, Chiefs, Chargers, AFC West matchup. Like everyone's happy with it. Hey, no buyer's remorse after that. Hey, I signed up for Amazon Prime and I got a great product. Okay, last week you gave us Colts Broncos. The week before that, we all watched what happened to Tua. Like this week, everyone's kind of like cringing. Like, do I have to watch this game like between my eyes like this? You know, Bears and the Commanders. I'm still not used to calling them.
Yeah, I'm not used to it.
But yeah, man. So you got Justin Fields, who can barely complete 10 passes in a game, versus Carson Wentz, who has the mental fragility of I don't know what, and was just called out by his coach 2 days ago. So I don't know what's going to happen, man. That could be a really ugly quarterback battle. That's all I'm saying, man. I might need a drink for that one.
Does it feel like Thursday night is becoming like the color rush night again? Because every team seems to be debuting their alternate helmets on a Thursday night. The Bears are doing it this week.
Yeah, I know. I know. And I also, that's another like kind of unrelated point, which I think is going to be unpopular with a lot of fans, but I think that like teams like the Eagles and the Giants are doing it right with their alternate color helmets. Like the Eagles, they haven't broken it out yet. Do they have it yet, or is it next year?
It's going to be next year. They're doing an alternate black helmet this year. It might be a one.
See, I don't like that. That was like the Cardinals this week with their like black, reddish, shimmery helmet. Dude, like when you turn the game on, or when the Saints wore that black helmet a couple of weeks ago, when you turn the game on, you have an immediate like, what am I watching? What is this team? Like, you know, when you watch the Eagles and the Kelly Green, it's like, okay, I get it. I recognize the Kelly Green. I understand the Eagles. There's already a brand associated with that. I think it kind of works with what the Patriots wore this week with the white shell. Like the Bengals wearing the white shell helmet with the white tiger is a perfect example of the difference between social media and reality. On social media, those edits look sick. When you turn on the game on Thursday night, you're like, what is this? What is this team? I don't recognize them. And then you're like, oh, it's the Bengals and they're wearing like a white helmet. I get it. White tiger. But like in practice, I think it looks way less cool than it does, on social media.
And you're right. The Giants, the Cowboys, even the Cowboys got to go back to their old Thanksgiving throwbacks. I think from the '60s, and they're wearing them, and they're embracing their past. The Eagles are going to be doing it. It's a shame Washington really can't because they.
Yeah. Also, their uniforms look like XFL uniforms. The black ones that they wore 2 weeks ago with like the yellow lines above and below the name. It's like, what is this? The W right on the rip that off, put an L there, because there's just a horrible uniform design. And yeah, man, I don't know what they're doing with it. What I would do to fix the NFL, I would send the Commanders, if I was a commissioner, I would send them down to the XFL. I'd move the Cardinals back to St. Louis and put them back in the NFC East. And then I'd call up the Alabama Crimson Tide as the 32nd NFL franchise.
Before I let you go, did you hear Roger Goodell kind of let slip he wants a division in London?
I did hear him say that, and it's like, whoa, man, pump the brakes, dude. One team, maybe I could get down with that. A whole division, what's going on? It's like prestige worldwide.
The first word in entertainment. But by the way, I don't think I would watch the NFL. I'm sorry. We're going to get – what we should do? We should combine the NFL, the XFL, and the USFL, and the XFL/USFL champion gets to go to the NFL, and the worst team in the NFL gets relegated.
Right. Yeah, bring relegation to football. I would like it. And then we could play the USFL and the XFL games over in Europe. And if someone wins over there, yeah, bring them over here for a season. I like that. Don't just give them a division. Come on. The fans wouldn't even appreciate or like it anyway.
No, I think when fans go over there, I don't think they care who they're seeing. They're just seeing American football. I think they were more interested in the game than the actual teams that were playing.
Oh, 100%. You ever see the stands? It's like they're wearing like every team. They're like, yeah, football. They probably go and I'm going to eat a hot dog. And I'm going to act like an American. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably like almost like a tongue in cheek type. I'm not saying it's not fun for them, but it's probably like a time for them to be like, I'm going to act like a crazy American and watch an American football game.
It's the British version of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what it is.
Anyway, Kevin, once again, we're going to have you on next week. Hopefully the Giants can continue the momentum of the NFC East. Hopefully Eagles Cowboys have a good game. Before I let you go, you got a prediction?
For the Giants or the Eagles and Cowboys?
Giants and Eagles Cowboys.
Giants are going to win because of the Wink Martindale effect. I think that the Eagles are going to beat the Cowboys just because I just feel like someone's going to separate in that division. It's going to be the Eagles.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. Always appreciate it, my friend.
All right. Peace.